Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of The Real Show, where we are real people giving you real content on real estate. Today's episode, we're going to talk about everything you need to know about selling your house and give you some great tips that you can actually use when you go to sell your house. So, my name is Jordan Rossman. I'm a realtor. I'm joined by my co-host today, Alfredo Torres. Say hello, Alfredo.
Hi, everybody. Excited to do the show. Very excited on this segment.
Awesome. So you know what? We got a lot of stuff to go through today, Alfredo. So let's just get right into it. So the first thing that we want to talk to you guys about today is getting your house ready to sell so that you can sell for the most amount of money. So basically, when it comes to getting your house ready, it all comes down to creating demand. You want to get as many people interested in your house as possible, so it helps to drive the price up. So basically, what we want to realize when we talk about driving demand is that over 90% of real estate transactions right now are generated initially online. So what that means is people are either seeing listings for the first time from their realtor sending it to them via email, whether it's on realtor.ca, whether it's on Facebook, wherever they see it, most people are seeing listings for the first time online. So what that tells me, Alfredo, is that it's all about the first impression. So how do we get a great first impression for your house? Two ways. Number one, you absolutely have to have a professional photographer come through your house before your house hits MLS. Gone are the days of taking pictures of a house with, there was actually a brief period where people were taking pictures with their cell phone, and some still do. And gone are the days of realtors or sellers taking pictures by themselves. You've really got to invest in having a professional photographer come through and do beautiful photos and a beautiful video walkthrough. Now, the other thing that's really going to add to, the quality of the photos outside of the talent of that photographer is staging your home properly. So having a staging consultant come through your house is, in my opinion, the #1 return on investment in terms of putting money into your house to get things ready for the pictures. So again, it comes down to creating that awesome wow factor first impression that a lot of buyers are looking for. You want people to fall in love with your house before they actually come and see it. So when they actually get there, they're saying, unless this is a letdown, I'm ready to go on this thing. So those are the things that we can do in terms of dealing with what we've got. If you're willing to take it to the next level, like you really want to maximize this sale, there's actually some physical things that you can do to your house to help really skyrocket the value. So if you're looking at updating a certain room, 1 or 2 rooms in your house, absolutely. What you want to do in that scenario is you want to make sure that you're actually going to focus on the rooms that people really care about. So it's super important to understand what rooms buyers care about. Typically, bathrooms and kitchens have always been the rooms that really sell houses. People are willing to, a lot of times, overlook, an outdated basement or, a living room that's not so spectacular if the kitchen and bathrooms are, off the charts gorgeous. So if you're going to actually invest money in updating a room or 2 in your house, you really want to focus on bathrooms and kitchens. From there, if those are already, maxed out, either you consider the fact that maybe you don't need to update a room, or you can focus on, some bedrooms, or if you have like a feature room in that house. But, if you're going to update rooms physically, bedrooms, would be third. Second would be bathrooms, and your kitchen would be #1. So, I'm not sure about you, Alfredo, but I've seen a lot of, bathroom and kitchen makeovers. I know that they're super expensive. Can you talk to us about a couple ways that people may actually be able to find some extra money so that they can update a room in their house?
Absolutely. I would say there's 4 different ways to do this. Obviously, cash is king. So if you have the cash, I would invest it right away. So those rentals though are very expensive. Like a kitchen, doing it right. Obviously, you want to make sure you do it right. Your option 2 would be to use the equity in your home, leverage your home. So you could do a home equity line of credit. to set one up. It's minimal cost, and it's an open product, which is really, really, really beneficial when you're looking at selling. So you'll have the opportunity to invest those funds that you're borrowing from the house you're selling to improve the property so that you can get a bigger return for it. And that's huge. And at the end, when you do sell, the home equity line of credit is open. That means you can just pay it off. There wouldn't be a penalty. You wouldn't incur any fees other than your regular discharge fee. Option two would be doing a refinance plus improvements. That's a specific type of mortgage for people that may not qualify for a home equity line of credit. So it's the alternative. The benefit to that is you would be remortgaging your home. You would be getting a certain amount back from renovations that you do up front. So this is something where we might have to use some creative financing to make the renovation happen, but then once the mortgage company sees that the renovation has been done and there's a process, you would need an inspection done at the end, they would give you the investment that you've put in back out. So it would be added to your mortgage. And then you don't really have a debt. You're not in any more debt other than your mortgage being up a bit. And the benefit to that as well is, and we'll talk more of this on a couple points later, but then you can take that mortgage with you to the other property. So it kind of has a multi-purpose if that's what you want to do. Option three, it's a very creative option, or option four, I guess, super creative, but it's using private funds. So you're really leveraging yourself. It's probably the most inexpensive way to do things, but if there's no other alternative, using private funds will help you get that return. And you would obviously take into account what it costs and if it's going to put you ahead. And those are definitely the different ways to work with the money that you have in your home.
So what I got from that, Alfredo, that I think is quite interesting is that when you talked about the refinance plus improvements, it's interesting that maybe you could borrow $20,000, for example, against your house, invest it in your house, and increase the sale price by potentially $30,000, $40,000, and have a short-term gain of, maybe double your money in, in that 1 or 2 months. Super interesting that there are ways out there. Not everybody has the cash sitting around for those investments. So now I want to get into actually pricing your house. So when it comes to pricing your house, there's basically, we're trying to find what's the list price, like what's the price that we're going to put on that listing. And there's two main ways to get that price. And I'll backtrack a little bit by saying, when we do when a realtor does their research on what type of price, really you're looking for a price range. Like, where should it sell? There's never that, you don't do your research and say it should sell exactly at $452,000. There's always a range, and the goal is to narrow that range as much as possible. So the two ways that we get your price range are as follows. The first one is looking at recent sales of similar homes in your area. Now, if you live in a subdivision where a lot of houses are very similar and a lot of houses have recently sold, that's much easier than if you live in a custom home on the outskirts of town. So it's really, first of all, important to understand, where you live is going to determine the accuracy of your comparables. So we want to look at recent sales of similar homes in your area. So when I say recent, ideally we're looking like the last 3 months max. And from there, what we're going to do is we're going to take, similar homes, see what they listed for and what they sold for, and then do a comparative market analysis on that house versus yours. So maybe they had hardwood and you don't, but you have a pool and they don't, and associate an actual value on the things that they have that you don't, and vice versa. So put an actual value on that. And then from there, we're going to calculate, it sold last month for X amount of dollars. And from there, we can get a price range of where yours should sell. Now, the second way of finding a price, which I actually find to be a little bit more accurate and a little bit more important, to be honest with you, is looking at the current competition. So what's actually on the market in your area that's similar. So for example, let's say you've got a house that you think is worth $400,000, and you do an analysis of what's on the market right now, and you find that there's 3 other houses that are listed at $400,000 in your area. How does your house stack up? So I always like to look at the sale of a house from the perspective of a buyer. So if I'm a buyer with $400,000 and I want to be in that area, which houses am I going to look at today, and how does yours stack up against theirs? So if you look at the other houses that are on the market for the same price that you want to list at, and yours is nicer, you know that your price range is going to be slightly higher. And on the flip side, if yours isn't as nice, then unfortunately you're going to be a little bit on the low side of that. So from there, once we get the price range, so whether that's a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 range of where your house should sell, from there we want to talk about a pricing strategy. So every seller on the planet, when they sell their house, wants to sell for the maximum amount, and I understand that. The question is that depending on which type of market you're in, whether you're in a strong seller's market, buyer's market, or a soft seller's market, you're going to have the price impact what type of market you're in. So right now what we're actually finding is that we're in a strong seller's market, meaning there are way more buyers out there than there are sellers, and buyers are paying above asking price for a lot of houses. So what we want to do in that particular case is you may actually want to price your house on the low end of the price scale so that you can drive the maximum amount of traffic to your listing. So this strategy may change on, depending on what type of market you're in when you sell. But if you're in a hot seller's market, we're actually finding that a lot of the people that are getting aggressive on their price and pricing it on the high end, they're negotiating their price down, where the people who list on the low end are getting, 2, 3, 4, or even more offers and selling way above where they even thought they would. So, it's really important, Alfredo, to note that when you're looking at the price range, as much as we want to, automatically we want to list at the high end of that price range and we want to get our number, in a strong seller's market, there is one thing that's really toxic, and that's being on the market for too long. So if houses in your neighborhood are selling in 7, 10, 14 days, you do not want to be that one house that's been on the market for a month. And that's what happens when you price too high. The last thing you want to consider when you price your house is you need to factor in, take into consideration some expenses that are going to be associated with selling your house. So there's really 3 baskets, and we're going to get in depth on one of them tonight. There's 3 baskets of prices, expenses that you're going to have to pay when you sell your house. So the first one is real estate commission. As a seller, you're going to have to pay the listing agent and the buyer's agent real estate commission. The second one is that you're going to have to pay a lawyer to close the transaction. So a lawyer is actually going to do the transfer of title, and they're actually going to be transferring the funds from the buyer's bank to the seller's bank. And then the third basket of potential expenses are associated with your mortgage, whether that's discharging, porting, or just sort of moving your mortgage. So Alfredo, can you talk to us a little bit about the potential expenses when it comes to dealing with your mortgage when it comes time to sell?
For sure, absolutely. So expenses, fees. I did a little bit on it before. Discharge. Every lender has a different discharge fee. Discharge fees range from $240 all the way to $370, depending on the lender. There's an e-registration fee, $71.50. That's flat across the board. That's kind of like a government fee that you have to pay when you discharge your mortgage. On top of that, there's your lawyer fees. In order for you to get your name off title, a lawyer does have to do that transaction, that part of the transaction, and that costs too. So that could range anywhere from $800 to $1,000, $1,200, and it depends who you want to work with. So maybe it would be in your best interest to shop around and find out what lawyers charge. Other than that, another fee could be something as simple as if your sale closes on the 15th of the month, but you pay your mortgage on the 1st. So there could be some accrued interest that builds up to when your actual sale happens. So you definitely want to be looking at getting all those numbers from your lender, from whatever finance company you're using, or from your representative that represents you for your mortgage. Now, there's the big one. The big one is the penalty. What happens if you have to break your mortgage? Now, there's 3 ways to go about this. 1, if you are lucky or you purposely timed it, you could be selling close to the maturity of your mortgage. And if that's the case, you don't pay a penalty. You just pay your discharge fee, any accrued interest, and that e-registration fee. That's a lovely scenario. It doesn't always happen, but if you time it, it's lovely. Number 2, breaking your mortgage. So if you decide you're in the middle of your term and you've outgrown the house, or you want to downsize, whatever it may be, you have to look at the option of, is it worth it for me to pay the penalty? Is it something that is a small penalty, so it's a fee, it doesn't matter, you're just going to pay it and start fresh? If the fee is too large, is it so much of a loss that it's not worth doing? Well, we can run the numbers for you. That way you know what's going to happen, because if you're paying a high interest rate and your penalty isn't too large, then it might be worth it, because you might save in the long run on your new mortgage at your new place. But if it isn't, then the last option is porting your mortgage. And porting your mortgage basically means if you owe $200,000 on property A, you're selling it, and you're buying property B, you are moving over that $200,000 to your new place. Now, with that, there's a bunch of details. The rate will probably have to stay the same. The terms will have to be the same. So there's a lot of details that you go into it, and some lenders are a little bit different than others. You might have to pay a top-up on a CMHC fee. It all depends. So you definitely want to explore those options and find out which one's best for you. Another thing is you don't want to jump the gun and just say, just break the mortgage, because sometimes it is beneficial to port. If you have a variable rate mortgage, it's a 3-month interest penalty to break. If you have a fixed mortgage, it's an IRD, and sometimes that IRD can be large depending where that mortgage is placed. So that's the gist of the pricing in regards to mortgages and the fees. And the last piece to this is, for those that don't know, obviously, it's about all those fees that you incur: the lawyer fee, the penalty, all the realtor fee. Those fees come from the sale of your home. So it's not something you pay out of pocket, right? So you're going to sell your home for so much. From that so much, all these fees are going to come out. You're going to pay off your mortgage if you decide that you're going to break and start a new one, or you don't need one anymore, whatever. But it comes from the proceeds of the sale. It does not come out of pocket. Of course, unless you don't have enough from the proceeds of the sale, then you have to make it up, whether you get a loan or you just pay from your own cash. But that is an important factor that a lot of people forget. They get really nervous. So not to get nervous. We're here to help, and we definitely explain things clearly.
Awesome. So Alfredo, what time is it?
Oh, it's pro tip time. So this is our favorite part of the segment, where we give you some pro tips. So right now, Jordan, what are the 2 top pro tips that you give for this segment?
Okay, so here are 2 things. If you're going to sell your house this year, here are the 2 things that I would love for you to pay attention to. Number 1 is all about staging. I have never seen somebody do anything to their house that has a higher return on investment than staging and getting your house ready to look perfect. So, I can't tell you, Alfredo, how many houses I've gone into where it seems like they've done 97 or 98% of the work to get their house ready, and they listed a couple days too early. It's all of the little things that you don't do when you get your house ready that really add up and kills the value. So, staging and photography, getting that great first impression, that's on your realtor. I'm going to say this, Alfredo, if your realtor is not bringing in a professional photographer and is not bringing in a stager, then your realtor is not marketing your house. Those are the 2 things that really drive demand. And it's a shame to see when people, get almost to the finish line and they just don't make that jump and they just don't take their house over the top. It's the one thing that can help differentiate your house from your nearest competitor. Number two, please don't be greedy on your price. You know, as we talked about earlier in the pricing part of the show, people who put their house too high, when they start on the high end of that price range and expect to negotiate down, they always negotiate down. They end up sitting there for 2, 3, 4 weeks. People see this house has been on the market for a long time. I'm going to go in with a lower offer. Please don't be greedy. I know that it takes a really tough stomach and a lot of guts to price your house on the lower end of the scale and really hope for multiple offers. But in a market that's super hot and a really strong seller's market, being greedy will cost you more money than listing a little bit too low. So Alfredo, those are my 2 pro tips for people to take home today. What are your 2 tips?
I love it. I love it. Okay, my 2 tips are, number 1, run your numbers. Know exactly what it is your mortgage balance is, your costs are. That way you know how much money you have to work with for the next property, or how much money you're going to have left at the end of it all. Because you can estimate and assume, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You need facts, you need the numbers. And how do you get those numbers? Well, here's pro tip 2. Use your team. Your team is important. You have a realtor, you have a finance guy, you have a lawyer, and all these people are a wealth of knowledge. Don't be scared to ask. We are here to help. They won't mind. It's not a silly question. It's a very important question. And this information is huge. Once you talk to your team of people, you can create a spreadsheet and say, okay, these are going to be my lawyer fees. These are going to be the realtor fees. These are going to be what I'm going to have to pay in discharge and my mortgage and accrued interest. And this is what I get left over. It's awesome to be informed. It takes the stress away, and it's key. It's key to everything.
Awesome. So just to recap, stage your house, don't be greedy, know your numbers, and use your team. Thank you everybody for watching episode 3 of The Real Show. Next week, we are going to be coming to you again at our regular time, Tuesday at 7 p.m., where Alfredo will be in Hawaii.